All right, so we have with us on the live in our studios here, Professor Christopher Charles, and let me just give you a little bit of background who Professor Charles is. Professor Charles is a full professor in political and social psychology at the University of the West Indies, a man who has significant years of experience in this area. And Professor Charles, we're inviting it on to the program because we want to look at the challenge that this whole issue and the public response and the government's response with the addition of one more child murder in Jamaica when the young 8-year-old was abducted from her home, from her school in Portmore, and her body dumped somewhere in the corporate area in Kingston. Professor Charles, welcome to Jamaica Mix.
Yeah, good evening, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you know, boss.
I'm very good.
You look like you're on a vacation or something. Mind yourself, you know. Where you up?
No, since I returned from the University of Missouri, I have been resting and ignoring most of what is happening. But I'm back at the University of the West Indies. But being in Jamaica, it's difficult to ignore what is happening. But I'm doing that to a large extent.
Uh-huh.
But from time to time, my expertise is sought. At this stage, don't know what else I can do. I work as a senior civil servant, very senior.
Mm-hmm.
Went to the UN on behalf of Jamaica, wrote for prime ministers, wrote for the governor general, implemented public policies nationally. And in recent times, I work with politicians at the highest level on both sides who have sought my counsel. And counsel is one thing,
What they do with
but
it?
listening is another.
Right.
And testing it out with others to see if it can work and if there's evidence and see how best these ideas can be used. That is not done. So at this point, it's like I have given up. I don't expect much from my country of birth. And I have access to several countries, including the United States, and I will avail myself of them from
Yeah,
time to
but
time.
you're not get to so easy. We're not letting you go because you are a man. If my recollection serves me, you have done some work at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice.
Yes, yes,
right.
yes, yes.
So you are not exactly a
At that time, we
theorist.
were number one in the world, beat Harvard and all those schools in terms of publication. So we
Yeah.
were at that time, and it was led by a Jamaican, another KC man, Professor Basil Wilson. He was the provost and senior vice president. So we brought John Jay into that world class status in terms of hiring world class criminologists.
Mm-hmm. That exposure, that experience, though, in terms of because I think there's a science to crime and crime management that I mean anything that you can study, you can break it down, you can understand it and look at how you find and solutions or bring solutions to the problem itself. Is Jamaica availing itself to this kind of this body of academic and technological work out there?
I think you're asking a rhetorical question. There are people who taught me at the University of the West Indies and those who migrated, mentored me as a doctoral student in the United States. And they have given counsel before. I have given counsel my colleagues at the university who have done tremendous work. They have given counsel, but we have all been ignored. And even though we have been ignored, we don't take it personal. We feel that it is our responsibility to be able over time to convince the powers that be that science trumps common sense. In Jamaica, common sense trumps knowledge and expertise and science. I mean, I'm talking about performance expertise that people have shown that they have and have used it in Jamaica and elsewhere successfully. They have not availed themselves of it. I think they're more concerned about the electoral cycle, what will happen in the 5 years. So if you go, what you're telling them, they're not seeing it as a problem solving policy idea. They're looking at it as, well, will this allow me to be reelected or will this allow me to get elected, to
So
come from opposition and form the government? So their priority is really,
winning an election,
um,
returning to
yes.
power, maintaining power.
So in Westminster, survivors don't do and doers don't survive. This is the Westminster system. So I have been blessed to be trained in both political science and psychology at the graduate level, and hold a PhD in psychology from the City University of New York. And so I can explain the governmental system. I know how the ministries work. Hence my explanation recently about job description don't work well
Yeah, I want us to
with
take that.
Westminster. But let us stick to what you have asked.
Yeah. No,
Is this,
we got. I want to touch on that too because it's part and parcel of the how this problem has become so concretized in Jamaica. We literally don't have no solution to the problems that we have.
no, we do have solutions. What we don't have are leaders who have the competence, the capabilities, and the willingness. Some of my colleagues say the willingness. I know I'm at a stage where I think I'm hated. Maybe they will tell me I'm calling that on myself because I've called it on both sides in terms of the lack of competence. And the last time when I was up to this year when I was at the University of Missouri, I I criticized the American government through its embassy in Kingston,
Mm-hmm.
who was supporting our government in terms of their crime fighting efforts. So they're equipping them to go after the gangs. Nothing is wrong with that, right?
Right.
However, what is wrong is that before I was born, in 1962, when we got independence, we have been going after the rude boys, we have been going after the gangs, we have had cordon search, we have had snap raids, we have had curfew, we have had zones of special operation, periods of emergency. I call them periods of emergency rather than states of emergency because they're for a period constitutionally. So we have all of this. We have had rapid police teams, from Kingfish, Ranger in 1980, Crime Management Unit, ACID, Operation Eradication, Shined and well, Yellowman and Fathead rather did a song,
Mm-hmm.
Operation Eradication.
Eradication,
So
right.
we have all these squads and but all these strategies is going after the gangsters after they have committed a crime. And we have been arguing that going after the gangs is good and you should always go after them. Very good. But our ability to apprehend and to arrest and successfully convict gangsters in the courts, we have not done well at that. We have not done well. We have had a few successes recently, but there are still challenges.
I think those successes though were kind of I want to call them handpicked. There are some cases
No, so
that
a few. Let us not. It's a Jamaican problem
yeah.
where if we do something good about just one case, we are not the darlings of the universe and we are stars and we have
And
done.
that's which is my point. That's the
So when I
observation I
said a
make.
few,
Yeah.
take it as a few, and I said in recent times, but we have not done well generally.
Right.
So yes, you have to go after the gangs, but what about going after the conditions or tackling the conditions that generate the criminals? That's why I criticize the American government and the embassy in Kingston. And they were saying, oh my, he's working in the US and so on. And he's saying all these things. But I was bred in America. So I
But
I
that's where you got your PhD anyway.
Yeah, and my parents went to the US and then we went, and so I'm very Jamaican, but I'm also very American, and so I understand the system. I'm there a lot. I live between Jamaica and the United States. So the issue is go after the gangs, try to apprehend them, right? But tackle the condition that generate them also. But before I go to that, look at this. The young girl whose throat was slit. If you listen to some of my colleagues at the university, and I know they complain about me criticizing them, if you listen to the police, the media, the politicians, the private sector, it is the first time we have killed a child in Jamaica.
But that's the impression that you got. You are
So
correct.
that's when you listen,
Yeah.
and so everybody is outraged without any solution. So they say, okay, we need to reinstitute
Capital punishment.
capital punishment, hanging.
Hanging, right.
One, you have to catch them first, and we've not been doing a good job at that. Secondly, you have to deal with the human rights people in Jamaica, and they are very, very strong, and they have backers outside. So you have to deal with that. Also, it is human to feel vengeance, especially when women and children are killed, because especially for men, our protective instinct kicks in. And so we become angry, and that's understandable. But vengeance cannot be the motivation for a public policy, because there's no evidence that if you kill murderers,
it's going to stop murder.
Yes, there's no such evidence. So let me give you an example. If you look at the United States, one of the strongest state systems in terms of its capacity to do things and to prevent itself from being overthrown and to crush social movements and to crush criminals. But among OECD's countries, among rich countries, America is the most violent country among the rich countries of the world. Despite all of what I said to you, it is documented in the criminological literature. Also, American whites are the most violent whites among rich countries, among all whites. So you can spend money to go after criminals and to apprehend them, fine. But what about addressing the conditions? But let's look at the young lady. I mean, it was very difficult for me to even watch the news because I was hurting too, like most Jamaicans, and there's a sense of anger and you wanted vengeance. But vengeance cannot be the motivation for public policy. You need to think it through. So we have been pushing states of emergency, what I call periods of emergency. So which state of emergency could have stopped that killing? Which zone of special operation could have stopped that killing? Which zone of operation can stop domestic violence and murder suicides? Right? Absolutely. And domestic murders. None. Remember, if citizen A wants to kill citizen B and is planning it and no one knows.
That's it.
It's very difficult to stop it. But the police will tell you that they can stop that. What I'm saying is, in the Jamaican case, 70% of our murders are committed by the gangs. So the extent to which you can smash the gangs, you're going to have a significant reduction. Remember when the police, in that police military operations, I don't call it incursion, in 2010 in Tivoli Gardens to get Christopher, my namesake. When they went into Tivoli Gardens to get Chris, and they were met with stiff resistance, they eventually, over 3 days, smashed the community. Some of the police officers, engaged in extrajudicial killing and so on. But by and large, it was justified aggression by the state, except the extrajudicial killing, where you find young men and you just take them and kill them.
Yeah, I think the body count at the end of it was some 110.
All right, so my senior colleague, Professor Ariat, who is now retired, he has shown in his work that that smashing of Tivoli caused a significant reduction in homicides, 40%,
Right.
right? But we never capitalize on that. So we are not saying that if you go after the gangs, you won't have a reduction. But if you go after the gangs only, what about the replacement gang members? What about the conditions that are creating new gang members? And so it is the situation that create criminals that we're not addressing. And so we have a feeder system. So if you have a feeder system that you're not addressing and you keep going after the gangs, the problem will not go away.
If I might just, because I remember, I remember that whole episode, and I, because of my own business background and entrenchment in that general area, before I moved here, my relationship, I built a solid relationship with the police division at Hunts Bay, right? And they made a point that you got rid of the upper layer of the gangs, but you had a second tier and a third tier, which is where I suspect you are calling that feeder system, and then there's no community development, if you will. So smashing a gang is one thing, but if you get rid of the top layer, you need to get rid of the second and the third layer, which is what will immediately reform and get you back to where you were. And then you also have to dovetail that into the.
All right, so I'm gonna show you how the system works.
Yeah.
So I was in a prison many years ago in an official capacity. So I asked for the Don of Dons in my official capacity, and they brought him to me. And I won't say which prison, I won't say when. When the Don came to see me, he was complaining about the sentence and complaining to me and so on. I was listening. But he had a phone in his hand that was bigger than my iPad.
So in other words, that phone can't hide.
And all the officials were there. And I was the only one who saw the phone. Recently, and he left when I inquired of him and said, okay, he needs certain things medically. So I know this man. I don't support the criminality, but they respect me. And so when a doctor comes, just send a prescription to me. And he left. So no one saw the phone. So cartel, it was alleged, they found 2 phones. And he was in solitary for some time. And I reflect on the time when I asked that Don come to see me in my official capacity in the prison at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a phone and he came to see me with the phone in front of everybody. And then he left with the phone. Right? And they will call people outside and say, call me anytime. So if the gangsters have so much influence, even when they have life sentences, it means that they're very powerful and the system is corrupt. So if you notice, I know the Don. The Don knows me. Right? Because Jamaica is a small place, and if, like us, if you grew up in inner city, where you played soccer with all and sundry, and we were not afraid of each other, everybody tackling hard and kicking down and elbowing, and right? That's how we play the game. And so they have respect for you because you have held it straight and narrow, right? You saw no join killing in the join a gang. You went to school, you went to church, universal press, they are proud of you. But they always speak to you. We always say hi, but we're not sailing the same boat. Why am I saying this? This is not to say I'm some special being, but to make the point that just like how I have connection to gangsters, but I ensure that I do not do anything to support or to support criminality. There are other people who also know them, thousands, who in communities who do not have a criminal record that provide critical and logistical support for the gangs. There are grandmothers who operate as spies, grandfathers, young children. So when soldiers and police search young children going to school to see if they're carrying guns in their bags for the gangs, the children are noting who they are, looking at numbers, identifying characteristics, remembering names of who, the cops, if they're referred to by their names and so on, and give descriptions. So the children themselves have been co-opted to provide information about the police that they are passing, or the police that search them on their way to school, right? So the gangs, without glorifying it, we're just talking about the reality. And in poor societies, it happens in all societies. Gangs provide income to the members, provide security, provide solidarity in terms of identity. You can identify. It's a recreation. It's a surrogate family. There are a range of benefits that gangs provide. And in the case of Jamaica, the income is not just for gang members, but for some members of the community. And the connection between the gangs and the community are very integrated. So, for example, you're talking about killing women. Jamaican women are some of the most vicious killers. You have some Jamaican women who work with the gangs called sleepers. And my colleague and friend, very good friend, Herbert Gale, my colleague who Harvard was, but he's still in Jamaica.
Hold on. What is a sleeper? What a sleeper does?
And I'm going
Okay,
there.
okay.
I'm going there.
My bad, my bad.
So he and I were writing a book on murder suicide. So we have had murder suicide in Jamaica. Getting there, it should be finished this year. But we have had many conversations, and one of his area of work is on the sleepers. The sleepers are women, right, who work with the gangs. If the gang wants to kill Richard Blackfoot,
No, don't call, do.
they find the sexiest girl in the community who is a sleeper, who works with them. And she meets you when you come to Jamaica. She gives you sex. You don't have to give her any money. She cooks for you, takes you around. You're nice. But then she tells the gang members when next she's going to have sex with you and where, when. And so when she's having sex with you, the shooter just come and shoot
Wipe
you.
you out.
Yes. And Herbert, his kind of work, based on his British training, his work, he takes very long. I will do my research in a week, 2 weeks, and just move quickly, as we do in the United States. But painstakingly slow. So he has hundreds of murderers in his data set in terms of murderers. He has sleepers as well. And one woman, one of the sleepers, she has killed over 20 men. And so the women in the communities, they are some of the planners of criminality. They work with the gangs, and they also sometimes, for simple reasons, a man diss me, or he might look me and she could tell our gunman baby father, or box me, or disrespect me. And our man run go for gun, and war start, and women leave the community until the war is over, then they come back. So the women, right, are very critical. And in garrison communities, a lot of people don't like us to say this. They still exist. Still exist. some community members and the gangs are very close, right? So I know in West Kingston, youngsters very educated, all kind of university degrees. I won't say what they are, but if you ask them, they are shower or presidential clique. If you ask them, they are scandalous. They never hold a gun yet. They're not going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
But they identify with the gang in the community and they know all the gang members. When I want to interview killers, I just call on these people and train them and they go and interview the killers. And I don't say which community, I just say, ethnicity communities. I remember when I just came from the United States, something was wrong with my van and it was in the garage. And so I called in one of the garrisons, one of the top garrisons, and the youngster came for me. The young lady was from the community. She was in the Faculty of Medicine. And the driver, the youngster, had a master's in accounting. So these are like prized children of the inner city, some of the roughest garrisons. And so when they picked me up, because we're going to the university, and a taxi man was speeding, and I thought he was going to write off the car we were in. And I got sick because if he had hit the car and hurt those kids, I couldn't say what would have happened. And the reason is those of us who have done well, doctors, lawyers, engineer, professor, all those things, they respect us and they dote on us. As long as you're not a show off and put them down, you're good. And so my point is that I'm happy that the taximan found his brakes, because if he hit those kids, I'm sure not even me could have stopped the killing. Right? Right? They'd have wiped out his entire family. Just how much they value the kids who have done at the University of West Indies. So my point is, even law-abiding residents have a lot of social capital with gangs. And so can you imagine those who are not in the gang but support criminality? So when we talk about conditions, we're not theorizing. Our children that are born in Jamaica who eventually become killers, in particular, and criminals in general, they're not born criminals. They're not born killers. They came into the world as normal babies. But the kind of families they were raised in, dysfunctional families, the kind of schools they attended, and the kind of communities they live in, they have created monsters. We know from the work that has been done in Jamaica that when you interview the repeat killers, these are the youngsters who kill repeatedly, that without any prompt. So what has happened to you? Tell me what's going on with you. All of them without any prompt will tell you that their mothers tortured them. Some fathers.
These are the killers.
Yes. They will tell you that they were tortured by their parents. And we know from the chronological literature and from literature in other countries. And my mentor, late mentor, Professor Freddie Kling, did some work on this, talking about personality disorders.
Right.
If you do not bond with your children, there's insufficient attachment, insufficient love and care. You're harsh to the child. You didn't let the child. You don't set boundaries. You encourage the child to be violent. You encourage the child to defend himself or herself. When the child brings stuff home, you do not ask, where did you get this?
Get it from?
All these things, right? You create children with attachment disorders that by the time they become adults, become personality disorders. So we know that it is the psychological, emotional, sexual, and physical abuse. We know of mothers in inner city. She didn't want her son to join a gang, so she started to slow poison him. So he was always sick. We know of youngsters their parents tie them up in an ant's nest as punishment. Right? Brutal treatment. And we know from our interviews and from the literature, scientific literature, and from research elsewhere, that it is frustrated mothers and fathers who do this. And parenting skills are not, you're not born with them, you have to learn them. So we know there's a lot of frustration with the demands of parenting and demands of economic survival. Some parents take it out on their children, and they themselves have trauma. So they pass the trauma onto their children by how they treat them. And so they become killers. So we know that you can provide critical support for families in crisis, for dysfunctional families. We have been saying this for a very long time.
Here's my question, though, Prof.
And I'll get to the community and the school soon.
In fact, hold that thought for a second. And a little bit of break here. Just give me about, let me just get this a little bit, make a little, take care of the business. So give me about 2 minutes, we'll be right back.
Everyone can use a little pick-me-up. And when it's that time, reach for a bottle of Zion Organic Roots, made from all natural ingredients. Zion Roots and ginseng, tiger balm, bedroom bully is the natural alternative. Zion Roots is available at all local restaurants and Caribbean stores. Visit our website at zionrootsorganic.com or call 954-588-5203. Zion Roots, the natural alternative.
Here at JN Money, your safety is our top priority. During this time, JN Money encourages customers to send money safely and conveniently using our JN Money online service. For cash pickup, to the JN Money card, to bank accounts in Jamaica, and to pay bills directly in Jamaica. With fast, safe, and convenient services, JN Money will help you find a way. Stay safe.
Licensed as a money transmitter by the Banking Department of the State of Florida and Georgia.
JN Money Services USA Incorporated, a licensed money transmitter in Connecticut, District of Columbia, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. License number FT71415, Massachusetts Foreign Transmittal Agency.
I was trying to find some reggae and Jamaican themed t-shirts and found this website, yardabroad.com. Let me tell you, the selection of shirts and the designs that they have to offer off the chain. T-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, phenomenal quality, excellent service, and of course the pricing to die for. Check them out. You won't regret it. yardabroad.com. And we are back. And we're back. Now, we have with us this evening on our program Professor Christopher Charles, and we are talking about I want to say multiple of issues. Issue of this, the public reaction to the murder of this youngster just a little over a week ago. And, Professor Charles here, we're looking at, the whole psychology of public reaction, the public reaction to the event, the political reaction as well. And as, we're looking at the different options that are available to us as a people, and how to address the whole coping mechanism. Professor Charles, back to you, sir.
Yes. So we know that there's a problem. So dysfunctional families create criminals. You do have the exceptions, when where children are well bred and they just decide to go
bad.
Yes, but they are a minority. So that's one. So you can devise programs using the psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, clinical social workers to respond to mental health nurses, psychiatric nurses to respond to families in crisis. We have been saying this for a long time. Professor Frederick Ling, in the personality disorder studies, say about 41% of Jamaicans suffer from a personality disorder.
Right.
So he has also argued that the high rate of motor vehicle accidents is suicide by
motor vehicle.
Yeah, suicide by motor vehicle accidents.
But let me ask you.
So what I'm saying is there
just
are
a
a range
thought.
of issues we have starting in the family that we have refused to address. So I'm not saying that we must not go after the girls. We should always go after the gangs.
If I
But you
remember
need
with
to
that.
address the feeder system, and the problems in some families is one issue. And I'm trivializing it because there are a range of things about these families and a range of options that or a range of ways that they can be addressed. But I won't go into that now. But just to say that that's a source and this can be addressed.
Stick a pin in that. If I remember, because I'm pretty sure I remember reading in that survey where Professor Hickling had also pointed out that a big part of the, separate and apart from the 40% of the sample size that he saw had these traces, right? That more than 80% of them were basically operating without any kind of treatment, no diagnosis, no nothing.
So let me unpack that for you. So with a personality disorder, it can be mild. Like growing up in urban Kingston, we have friends who used to call it psycho. The person was weird. So Jamaicans and other people, you find people very weird. And some of them have personality disorders. So they act in some strange ways, but not so strange that they can't be your friend. Not so strange that you won't employ them, but they are very strange. And so you call them maddies, psycho.
I did have a couple of them there in my class at KC.
And they go on to lead normal lives, but people find them shit. So they have mild personality disorders. Then you have the moderate ones now, who cannot maintain relationships. They can go to work, they can do well in their profession because they don't have to have any close relationships. And they will give relationship advice on television, but they can't maintain intimate partner relationship. They don't have those skills. And they don't get
Hold on. What are you saying? People who are out there who give relationship advice publicly and don't.
I know some of them. They'll talk publicly about relationship advice, but they have an inability to sustain healthy intimate partner relationships. But for those with moderate personality disorders, they are not able to have wholesome relationships, whether intimate partner or social. So they're always in some conflict with someone. So you have heard me in private settings talk about the talented Butu.
Yep.
Right? Where these people are super talented and they bring glory to the country, but try and work with them.
Yeah, problem.
All right. So that's those with mild personality disorders. Those with severe personality disorders, no. If you look too hard on them or you step on their shoes in a dance or you disrespect, they'll kill you. So for example, gang members, if you diss, you're dead. And there are people like that who are not gang members.
Yeah.
You're on a bus, you bowl somebody, and you say, sorry, I never see you. And you're dead.
Yeah.
I know of instances in the Colonel Charles Arcade at least once. Some of the gang members who are based downtown. They came and they took up, for example, like a pair of shoes, and they were leaving. And the young man said, but, everything good now. Look, I still me up and tell me so now I take it, because we're there all the time and, and he never disrespected them and they killed him.
How do you explain that though? What?
Severe personality disorder. Any slight any perceived personal slight, you deserve death. They would be youngsters who have severe attachment disorders as children because of the kind of lack of bonds and attachment that they had with caregivers, critical caregivers. And the abuse continued across the life course, and the institutions were not supportive, family not supportive, schools not supportive, communities violent, and so they become killers. So any slight at all, no matter
So when you
how
say you're
slight,
this, you're dead.
you're dead. So there's a range. So remember now, those with mild and moderate are supporting those with severe personal intolerance who do the killing in some communities.
I want to ask this question, specific to the
I'm
issue.
not hearing you clearly. Let me see if I can turn my thing up. Go ahead.
Specifically, you hear me now?
Yes, yeah.
Specifically to the issue of that Nagohead Primary School infant murder. I am wondering the way how the thing unfolded. Well, in the first instance, the police has subsequently reported that murder represented the 8th such child murder in the island up until that time. It could be more, but they're the ones
This
that
is ongoing every year.
Agree.
This is ongoing
But
every year. Every year.
I am making this point relative to the comment you raised earlier as to how the political directorate were responding as if this is the first time this has happened, right? And so it kind of begs a question for me. One, the way how the things seem to have unfolded. Could it be that the person who was involved in this thing, this is not their first foray into this area?
I wouldn't speculate, but all I can say, I am now convinced that most of us are mad in Jamaica. And most of us are stupid. And I put myself in it. Forget the many degrees and teaching in the US and Jamaica, lecturing in Africa. Forget all of that.
Yeah, but are you saying...
No, I'm serious here.
Yeah.
The reason is we seem to have an inability in Jamaica to solve basic problems. So let me give you an example. I listen to lawyers, politicians, private sector leaders, opinion makers, pass new laws, harsher sanctions. I mean, if people are operating with abnormal psychology, they don't care about what you are coming with. As if they're going to be afraid of that. Repeatedly, when I was growing up in Jamaica, I would see soldiers and police, and you have PNP supporters and JP supporters. And the member of one of the tribes would pull out that big knife that we call kitchen bitch in Jamaica to stab a rival party supporter in front of soldiers and police with their weapons. Right. And all the members is to go between the two sides. So in any other jurisdiction, that person will be dead. Right? Because you're going to kill someone in front of the officers. So people say, let us drive the fear of God in them. They don't believe in God.
Them don't believe in anything. They don't have the fear either.
Yes, and they don't believe in God. So fear is, right? Then they will say, turn this one in an example. In Jamaica, part of the dysfunction, man a bad man. Man no care. So there are problems in our society in terms of subcultural violence that we need to tackle while we go after the criminal. So let me just piggyback on the question you asked in relation to the young lady.
Right.
Jamaica, we find money, politicians find money to pay themselves how many 100%. They find money for by-election and elections. A by-election in Jamaica is several million Jamaican dollars spent,
In some cases, 100 million.
It's a lot of money by any standard. billions of dollars spent on one by-election. So we have no money as a country, but when the politicians want to do things, they find the money. Look at Jamaica. They're largely relying on private cameras. And you have to subpoena. If someone says, "No, I'm going to give you the footage from their private camera,"
You have to go to court.
You go to court. But they can destroy it before the court subpoenas it. And you can't do anything. Why are you relying on private citizens where we do not have that civic responsibility in Jamaica and civic consciousness that we must work with the police as citizens do in other countries? So that's one problem.
Yeah.
So because the state refuses to put these cameras all over the country, I blame them, right? Because that woman could not have taken away that child if we were serious about using the CCTV cameras. We're not serious.
But the CCTV camera, I'm learning, is what gave them something to start with where they could create a composite. I'm just saying.
No. They couldn't see the lady's face. That kind of system, you would have to interview witnesses who saw her, interacted with her. That's how they generated. But I'm going to show you now the dysfunction of the cops. The senior officer in charge of that.
Come over a little to your left.
That the composite is a picture of the person who did it. That's bullshit.
But that is the argument that was being when you listen.
Oh no,
yeah.
Jamaicans were so angry. If we knew who wouldn't call the police, would go
and get rid of them
and exact jungle justice.
Right.
That's how everyone feels. So I'm saying, when I heard the officer, the senior superintendent, saying that what you're seeing, well, the image to me looked like a man-woman. Like a cross between a man and a woman. And you have to draw, you talk to eyewitnesses and you use the system. So one, the recollection, right? How well the person can describe features, the cognitive capacity or architecture of the officer listening and recording, and his skill with using technology.
Right, the ability to turn
right?
that into
so
an image. Yeah.
Once the senior officer said, it is accurate. Bullshit. And I was fearful because that picture, that image,
could be anybody.
If it resembles anyone, most people in the industry would go and kill that person. So they should have said, if you know anyone that resembles this picture, please provide us with that information so we can go and interview that person. But when you say the image generated, this is what the person who did it look like, you're crazy. I know the police is not serious. They're also incompetent.
But there's a photograph of the woman embracing that child in the school. I saw a photograph. Mark, it showed up from behind, really, where the person was embracing the child, like they were about to lift the child up or something. But to your point, though, the system, the fact that CCTV cameras, it has demonstrated that clearly that this works, right?
No, it hasn't worked.
No, that the potential for it worked elsewhere.
No, let me just clear this up because I don't want you to sound like the cops. Because once you start to sound like the cops, I'm going to get antsy, right? Look, we know CCTV work, but you have to have a lot of them.
And that's what I'm saying.
So don't say they work. Not working in Jamaica.
No, I wasn't saying it work in Jamaica. I'm saying
they're not invested in the infrastructure. So
right.
We're talking about the Jamaican context. We know they work. So for example, and I keep telling, I don't want to call them fools, but I keep telling them that you need to twin the CCTV with the shot spotter. The shot spotter is a
once you hear an explosion, right?
When there's an explosion, the camera comes on. It's twinned with the camera, and the camera zooms in on the person in the direction of, zooms in the area where the shot comes from, and the camera follows every single person there because all the cameras are organized.
Right.
Several of them are tracking each person, and relaying it to officers in their patrol cars nearby, and they can see what's happening. Right? And the people in the command center are describing the people and where they are going. Right? One, we don't have enough cameras and relying on private cameras, and we don't have the shot spotter. When I say shot spotter, them say, what? What you say? If you listen to the police commissioner, who I call the
And it's a joke.
The commissioner of politics and the chief of defense staff, who I used to call the chief of in defense of the staff. But this new head of the JDF is different. So I stopped using that moniker. So they'll talk about new laws as if laws have brains, laws have eyes, laws have feet and hands. When I hear people just talk as if you pass a law, so
it's going to change
traffic
everything.
deaths will go down because of the new Road Traffic Act. Really? The behavior we have seen in Jamaica, where only one time I've seen a law significantly reduce a particular crime in Jamaica. You know, when we were children, they loved triangles and they used to throw acid on one lover throw the children lover would throw acid on a rival. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to catch the person because everyone knows who the person will tell you who injured them. But they used to also take acid on the bus and say, when they're robbing the bus, they have the acid. And nobody wants acid to be thrown on them. So everybody in the bus would pass over their valuables. Then Haiti night, Spirit of the Law, under the PNP, where they would give a life sentence. They give a life sentence to people who throw acid on others. So it still occurs, but not, it's very...
frequency isn't there.
Seldomly. It really happens. Still happens, but rarely. And the reason for that is because everybody knows the offender. Not so for other crimes. So I'm not saying that if someone knows that it is certain that they'll be captured, that, right? And the sentence will be harsh, that it won't have an impact. But it's not for all crimes.
I want to ask this question. And again, I think our attitude to the commission of crimes and how we deal with it have a lot to, well, first of all, there's a negative relationship between the police and the public, where, in a majority of instances, people just don't trust the police. They're not going to give them any kind of information. And
well, that's not true, but finish the point.
Well, the trust factor, the trust issue is a factor. And so people feel in a majority of instances they make a report to the police and the information come back into the community, which basically identify who have provided the information.
All right. So let us start here. So the Don box me. And I go to the police station and report it. And the police go to the Don. Right? Nobody else is willing to testify, but the police have to go to the Don to say, we have a report against you. And if we keep getting these reports, we're going to bring it in. We're not bringing it now because it's your word against Professor Charles' word, and there are no eyewitnesses. people will say, oh, there's no way the police can investigate, right, in certain crimes without information being provided to the person you're accusing. You have to tell them what you're arresting them for. So we have to be careful. We do know that some cops are corrupt and they will send information. We know that, but it's a little bit more nuanced than that. The next thing, when you talk to police officers, people tell them things, they get all kinds of information, right? What is missing is that the people do not want to go to court.
I was coming to that as well.
No, they don't want to enter. So it is not true that the police don't get information. So if people are afraid to come to court, but they give me information, I am supposed to be able to use my range of strategies, right, to develop a case because I know of information that makes Christopher Y the prime suspect or the person of interest, and I can start to track, monitor, get um, um, warrant and subpoena, warrant to be able to search, to tap the person's phone and so on. What I'm saying is, we get the information, but if the person that will testify, we can't do anything. Not in other jurisdiction. That information is supposed to be a breakthrough that you now use to create a case by using other means, if the person is not willing to testify. Also, people are willing to testify. We know this. What people are not used to is we have never lost anyone in Jamaica witness protection program. And let me be careful now, because I know people are listening. We have never lost anyone. Anyone who has stayed in the program. Anytime a witness gets killed, it is because the witness says, I can't stay in this house, we can't move, yes, we want to go foreign after the case, but we feel trapped. We can't take this a year and a half now, I can't move up and down, miss my family, and they leave this protection program and then they are killed. Right? In other jurisdictions, the people stay in the witness protection program. So we have never lost any witness who stays in the program. So you have to explain the lack of, people's unwillingness to go to court in terms of something else. People don't have any love for the country anymore, right? They don't see it as their civic duty to be involved. And they don't have any respect for the system or trust the system. And they feel that nothing will come of it. And they're wasting their time. So in some sense, you will have fear, but there are a range of other problems that politicians have created over time that the people no longer care.
But we're almost up on a final break, but I want to make this point. I hear you that people don't have no love for the country, but your country need to make some investment in its people for them to love the country, right? The majority of people, the median income in Jamaica is about $87,000 a month, which is just a little over $20,000 a week, right? That basically produces what you call subsistence living. If you can,
that's about $130 US a week.
$130 US a week. Yeah, but the point is, if you are struggle to stay alive in an environment where no matter how hard you try, it not help you. Where's the motivation? What people are saying is, give me some motivation. The government, we just talked about it. The members of the administration have just found a way to pay themselves 200% and 300% salary increase. Them increase the pay of the judges. People don't pay that any attention either. In fact, they did that before they raised their own pay. They paid the Chief Justice, all of the heads of the court system, got significant increases in the pay. But the jobs that they are doing is producing almost a zero result, because crime and punishment, but the whole justice system is dysfunctional or non-functional. But you have rewarded these people in the same way the politicians rewarded themselves for doing absolutely nothing.
So are you aware that the majority of Jamaicans want to live overseas?
Oh, I'm more than aware of that. That's why I live
So
here.
the last set of polls that I can recall, if the others have been done and you're listening, you can send it to the producer, to Richard Blackwood, and send it to me. But the late Carlstone did some polls about, do you want to migrate? And in the 80s, the majority of Jamaicans wanted to migrate.
All right,
And things were not as bad as they are now.
Hold that thought, Prof. We want to break. I just want to get this away and we come right back.
Listen, everyone can use a little pick-me-up. And when it's that time, reach for a bottle of Zion Organic Roots, made from all natural ingredients. Zion Roots in ginseng, tiger balm, bedroom bully is the natural alternative. Zion Roots is available at all local restaurants and Caribbean stores. Visit our website at zionrootsorganic.com or call 954-588-5203. Zion Roots, the natural alternative.
Here at JN Money, your safety is our top priority. During this time, JN Money encourages customers to send money safely and conveniently using our JN Money online service. For cash pickup, to the JN Money card, to bank accounts in Jamaica, and to pay bills directly in Jamaica. With fast, safe, and convenient services, JN Money will help you find a way. Stay safe.
Licensed as a money transmitter by the Banking Department of the State of Florida and Georgia.
JN Money Services USA Incorporated, a licensed money transmitter in Connecticut, District of Columbia, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. License number FT71415, Massachusetts Foreign Transmittal Agency.
I was trying to find some reggae and Jamaican themed t-shirts and found this website, yardabroad.com. Let me tell you, the selection of shirts and the designs that they have to offer off the chain. T-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, phenomenal quality, excellent service, and of course the pricing to die for. Check them out. You won't regret it. yardabroad.com. Charles, we're talking about number of issues here with respect to, just, I want to call it, the whole security profile. Professor Charles, so go over a little bit to your left. You keep like you're sliding off of the chair. A little more.
No, I'm going to fall off the chair now.
All right, perfect. All right, we were talking about the before we went to the break, the surveys that done by the late Professor Carlstone. I also remember that a couple of years ago, maybe about 2 years ago, there was a similar survey which showed that some 87% of our youngsters in that age range, 16 to 27, they had surveyed about 2,800 of them, and a similar 87% of that number indicated the same thing.
My son, who is an American, who experienced New York, from I brought him to Jamaica, brought him back to Jamaica, and he was in prep school. He wanted to go back to the United States. So a small child doing the comparison. And I had to be encouraging him, no man, go to high school, go to university, and then you can go back to the USA, you can do all you want to do. Right? So small children, none of the youngsters in my family on either side, they don't want anything to do with Jamaica. But that's not unusual. Look at the politicians. Where are most of their children? If you do a poll now, right, and we're talking about politics with growing children, right, those that are in power, and I mean government opposition, where are their family members? Large numbers of them are overseas. If the politicians are doing such a good job, and they're doing great things, why so much of their family members are overseas?
That's an excellent point. And in fact, most of them.
Can you increase your volume? My volume is at the max, and
you hear me?
A little better.
Yeah, better.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, most of these, it would appear that they, the politicians themselves to have one foot in Jamaica and one foot out. I mean, they may not have
A
a
lot of them
US.
have properties overseas,
Right.
most of the United States. Nothing is wrong with that, but they have it there. They don't use it as service here, you know.
Which was my next point. So if they get into any health issues, then board a air ambulance and bam to North America or wherever. But I want us to come back to the sort, because it's the psychology of the public reaction to the events of last week that really has
All right. So we're a very violent society, and the motivation that drove the public response was vengeance. So there's dissonance. We claim we are Christians, or we are a Christian country, but I always tell my students, the Bible is not in the Jamaican Constitution. So don't come to with nonsense in my lecture that we are. I can be tough, you know. They will tell you. So all politicians get this. You know, sometimes the students beg me to be kind, but we say we're a Christian country, but we don't remember that the Lord said, "Vengeance is mine," said the Lord. So we're now using vengeance to drive public policy and act as if a harsher law will stop people from killing our children. That's bullshit.
So the
We must,
question.
must, must go after to apprehend the killers, but we have to deal with the feeder system. And I dealt with the home as one example. I can give you another. Countries like Jamaica with a high homicide rate, remember now that Jamaica, when I say this, the governors get vexed. We're the most murderous small country in the history of human civilization. Per capita, in terms of our homicide rate, we kill more people per capita
And countries that are at war.
than some countries at war.
Yeah. I don't think Jamaica people recognize or is willing to identify with that.
All right, so let me just move quick because I know time is up on us. So we know that countries with high homicide rate tend to have a lot of boys who drop out of school. What's the relationship? These boys join the gangs. And the girls who drop out, some of them become sleepers, which I explained before. So a simple program where you go after the gangs and you have your ZOSO and your city period of emergency and your cordon search and your curfews, fine. Go after them. Try to operate them. Build your forensic capability. You also need to devise programs to identify vulnerable boys at risk of dropping out and girls at risk of dropping out, and devise programs to keep them in school. We know that if you provide lunch and breakfast, right? That alone in poor countries significantly increase
Attendance.
because of the poverty, and a large number of our children go to school hungry, right? So I'm not just saying that it is simple just providing food. I'm saying we can devise ways, right? Programs to keep our boys and girls in school. So we deny the gangs of replacement members, right? And we can go on and on and on. We can go into the community and we can give examples. So we have dysfunctional communities, dysfunctional schools, and dysfunctional families. And these are the critical institutions creating criminals and driving the homicide rate. And we have the private sector. So, for example, the last private sector summit in Jamaica, I wasn't invited. Herbert Gill wasn't invited. Other scholars who are doing the work. Herbert is from one of the most violent parishes in the country, Westmoreland. I'm from Kingston 11 and 13. And we understand it. We have been trained. We have done research. We have published. We have done all kinds of things, right? We have consulted with governments outside of Jamaica. We have consulted with ministries in Jamaica. We have done all kinds of things. right? And we're saying, yes, use a tough policing, go after the gangs, but you also need to address the feeder system. And they're not addressing that. So why should we take them seriously?
Is there a nexus, a connection between the politics of the country and the criminality?
Yes. Herbert Gill and I disagree about the extent. So I know, growing up in inner city, I have friends who got M16 from politicians. Every time I say this, people think I'm going to call it in. Right? Yeah. They get guns from, we know. And, whether it's Maxfield Waltham, you would see the MP or a government minister, bad man and care. We're not talking election, we're talking regular time. All right. But we can move from the anecdotes, the personal stories, and go to the historical record. Starting in the 1940s, the PNP and JLP co-opted members of criminal gangs to act as a strike force in elections to give them an advantage in marginal seats. So the PNP and JLP co-opted gangsters in the 1940s, from when the British were here in the 1940s, they had a by-election, and it was war between party supporters. And the British had to set up the Hearn Commission to investigate the violence between JLP and PNP supporters.
This was where? Downtown?
The name of the constituency is I'm blocking it. When I remember, I'll send you an email.
Mm-hmm.
And the first person in Jamaica that was shot in political war, this was in 1949, right? And it was in West Kingston. So this notion that it was Edward Seaga who started violence, nonsense. It started from Norman Washington Manley led the PNP, and from Alexander Bustamante was leading the PNP.
The JLP.
Sorry, Alexander Bustamante.
The JLP.
When it was a PNP first.
Yeah, it was PNP first, sorry.
So, but it started from Alexander Bustamante was leading JLP, and Norman Washington Manley was leading the PNP. So violence started, political violence in Jamaica started in the 1940s. And that's when they co-opted the criminal gangs. And the relation, so all the major gangs have party affiliation because they're anchored in politicized communities or garrison communities. We know that in the 90s, and we used to find this strange and humorous, there were members of parliament who were afraid of the gunmen. So as children in the 1970s, it was the MPs who the gunmen were afraid of. By the time we became young adults, leave university and working and traveling all over the place, we realized that many MPs were afraid of the gunmen. And we found it strange. So I think the hold that the politicians have over the gunmen, the influence has significantly reduced. Herbert Gale says no. There are at least 5 or 6 MPs who have total control over the gangs in their communities. So, right, if I use the name that he used to describe one of the MPs, you're going to know his who, so I can't.
We don't want to go down that road.
No, so I can't do that.
In fact, I know the era you're talking about in the 1949, and again, we don't want to get into the specifics of that either.
No. I'm not gonna. I wouldn't call any name, but if I use a nickname,
you will know his who. I agree.
So we just said Mr. Evil, but there's another title before the Mr. I just replace that title with Mr. So you can't know. Right? So that's so we laugh because we know that politician is. And the international partners know. Because when the ship was in the Kingston Harbor, outside, just about when they were entering Tivoli Gardens to go after Chris in 2010. The Americans had satellite photos, of Tivoli Gardens, and which politicians were going in there and talking to the general, talking to the short man. And they have all kinds of information, right? There are Jamaican politicians now who don't go to the United States. So yes, you do have, as far as I'm concerned, the politicians have less control with the gangs, but from my perspective, there's a minority who still have full control.
The police is on record that they themselves know, they know who the violence producers are. To a degree of almost 95%, they know them. But for the reasons that you're just outlining here, they dare not touch them. In fact, this was a personal interaction I had with a senior policeman a couple of months ago. I was back in Jamaica, and he said, police are not going to take those, are not going to take an aggressive approach to these criminals because they are looking, policing for them is a career. And if them don't have a police job, it's very difficult for them to get a job anywhere else. So they are basically towing the lines. Them come to work, do them have to do, finish them shift, and then go at them yard. My sense is that approach it runs contrary, given the nature of the problem that we have. It runs contrary to any meaningful addressing of the criminality in Jamaica.
So sometimes it's very painful when you hear politicians talking, and they're a part of the problem.
And just to amplify your point, this past week, it would have been Monday or Tuesday in the House of Representatives. There's this big debate and everybody, this hue and cry about the same subject, throat-cutting murder of the previous week. The Prime Minister is on his feet and is flailing his arms all over and talking about, this could be my child and this and that. And I'm saying, this is the biggest piece of bullshit that I've heard in a long time. Because this Prime Minister, I don't even think him picking them go to a regular school that them interacting with other children.
They are no young adults, but I think you're talking about the fact that when he was Minister of Education, his children were homeschooled. That's what you're talking about.
Right. But the point though, he was carrying on that this little child could have been his child. And I'm saying, we're using this as a political football. I see where, on the other side of the fence, Miss Hannah jump up and carrying on. And to a man and a woman in the place, I'm talking about, returning to capital punishment when the basics that you need to provide law and order. First of all, we have a minister of insecurity.
They're not going to do that because the Americans will take away their visa. And the worst thing you can do to a Jamaican politician is take away his or her visa, American visa. That's how vain they are.
So
that's how little love they have for Jamaica.
So
they're afraid of losing that visa.
So it's hypocrisy then.
Sometimes, to tell the truth, I don't know what to say. People fear for me because they tell me that my mouth is not mine because I speak. But if you're trying something for 60 years, from 1962 to 2023, and it's not working, and you're still trying it,
that means you're mad.
It's the insanity approach to development. So if you listen to the kind of reasoning, sometimes you think very much. So for example, one leader in a political party some years ago heard that I had good ideas and summoned me to come to where the leader was and to have a discussion with other people from the university. And that leader spent 90, monopolized the conversation. He spoke 95% of the time. And the main problem in Jamaica was absent fathers. That's upper class bullshit. And I say it without apology. Our father is important, yes.
You mean that was the politician's position?
Yes, saying absent father was our main problem. But that's middle class bullshit. Our absent father is important. Our father is, yes. But let me explain to you. In 1962, father presence was between, say, 6 and 8%, meaning fathers in the home. A few years ago, father presence increased to 44%, 44%. So if you're saying absent fathers, that's the primary reason why we're having this high homicide rate, why the boys are doing the killing. If you're saying that absent fathers is the problem, they would keep having more fathers in the home, and the homicide rate is going up, then you must know it's not the absent father. Because the problem that you're identifying, right? The problem is decreasing. But the cause is decreasing.
The cause is decreasing, but the problem is increasing.
But the problem is increasing. And you're still saying it's the cause.
Yeah, there's a comprehensive absence of logic in terms of that.
So we are going to tell you that fathers are very important. But I realized that something was amiss when I started going to the University of the West Indies. I would walk from Papine down to campus. You would see men with their baby back. I know some man, bad man, because you know we are come from ghetto. We know some man can carry baby back. Girl think that. The man, them have the little bag, them with little flower.
Nappy and thing. Yeah, man, yeah.
And him have him bag and him nipple buckle in there and him have the baby. Because when, you know, me a big man, I'm going to go to church. Them rescue me at church, I can't go to the baby, take the baby from me. The man, them have the baby, well, them know them do, them have backpack and everything, and them carry them, the picnic come at the hospital at the clinic, right? And so, just being at a university where fathers were now coming, you realize that what you were hearing about the men wasn't so. Professor Samson, my distinguished senior colleague, a part of a study about with fathers who provide support for the mother and the children. And you're a sample of over 3,000 couples. The majority of fathers were involved in the life
of their children.
Of the child.
Yeah.
What we have is the ATM father, right? So if you say to a lady, where's the father? He's not a father. Why? Some mothers say that the father is not able to provide financially. But the father comes to the house every morning, bathe the child, dress the child, walk the child to school, go back for the child, walk the child home, take the child out on the birthday to buy a ice cream, come. But the father is not in a position financially to do great things. But the mother doesn't see that kind of bonding and connection.
That's father.
The child as being important. So in the interviews, they will tell you that the child is not a father. But if you know how the situation is and you start to ask, you know, about money, about if the father visits, how much time, and you realize a lot of men who have no money, they are very active fathers. The mother can leave things there and they go and quit, you know, give the child, you know. And sometimes wait till the children till the mother comes in and the couple are not together. So I'm not saying that some of us are not wicked or we're not done bad things to our women. I'm not saying that. But the narrative, you have to deconstruct, you have to unpack it. And
How
it's
do
more
we
nuanced
how,
than we have been led to believe.
how do we overturn this state of affairs? And it's a long haul question, but you know,
Well, the first thing is, I know I have been close to the governors on both sides. I've been privileged. I don't take myself seriously, so most people don't even know. And some are like giants and some are like minions. I'm talking about leaders now.
right.
So when I think about it, the first thing, we have to select people with the competence and the integrity to lead.
Right.
I don't think we've done a good job of that in Jamaica.
That's one thing.
Having a PhD or
Yeah.
going to university does not make you a good leader. Coming from uptown or upper class doesn't automatically make you a good leader. So as a country, we have to decide, what do we expect of our leaders? How do we define leadership? What is it? What is the kind of leadership we'd like to see? What are the kind of leaders we'd like to elect? Because at least one half of the people who are there now should not be there.
Is it a reasonable position to suggest that we can cultivate that kind of leadership?
Okay. One of the problems is lack of integrity. So let me use students. Some of my best students are my C students. They come from traditional high schools. Most of them are boys, and they get a C, C minus, or C plus. The most they get is a B minus. But they work very hard. They try. They're not fighting for the grade. Once you give them some the feedback, they take it. They come back to the ask you how they can improve, and you can work with them. They are trainable. So I have seen young people who are weak students with the right attitude and having integrity. Not disrespecting you, not telling a lie, not saying that you told them this. They go and they work and they work. So even though I say competence is important, integrity is first. Because like those students, if the politicians have integrity, they do their best, because these ones are not doing their best. And if they don't have the expertise, they will employ the correct or the appropriate expertise. Right now, they give their friends the advisor positions, senior this and senior, without the expertise.
Integrity.
Right? Yeah, so there's no integrity.
Can we cultivate that?
About people. We have to fix the problems in our homes. There was a pastor in the 1970s. He had this Harmony in the Homes movement. Didn't take off. And as a radical kid in the 1970s,
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that Harmony in the Homes thing, yeah.
I thought he was an idiot. Kid who just passed community no more than the man. The man was correct. So we have to approach parenting in another way. So I've always argued that we should teach parenting in schools when the fathers and the mothers come to the maternity clinic. While they're waiting, you have medical social workers, you have psychiatrists, clinical social worker, clinical psychologists working with them. You have nurses stopping, maybe once a month they drop in, talk to the parents, just we need to help with parenting. It's not automatic. We need to identify children in school who are being abused, who are not being taken care of by their parents. And we need to work on the families. Right? So why am I saying this? I have a dangerous men who call the phone and I have to tell them no. I have a top political leaders I have to tell no. Dangerous men could have sent the soldiers, the informers were to clap me. Powerful politicians could make my life miserable by sending my colleagues who are really henchmen rather than scholars at the university to persecute me. But you have to take a stand. Because at the end of the day, I have to do what is right. The same structure that and socialized that I received in university, many other children receive. And so like when we were in high school and university, we used to complain about politicians and we now cry. It's now heartrending to see some of your classmates who are working with politicians now they are now doing the stealing.
Yeah.
And they used to criticize the system with you.
Yeah,
So the fact that some of us have not joined them suggests that something happened in our rearing, in how we were bred as children. That sets us up. And we're not perfect. We have no halo over our heads. We're not angels. We're just saying that there are certain things that you can't do. And so, for example, I've always said if I was a leader, because I used to take the bus when I returned from the United States many years ago. And my friends say, oh, Prof, you can't take the bus anymore. Your van is too long in the garage, you need to get it out. But it's the best way to understand society by going to Half Tree, downtown, walking all over, talking to people. It would make a difference if politicians would take a bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Get a feel for what's going on out there.
Yes. And you're not in a suit.
Yeah, put on your t-shirt or whatever.
And their security risk, you can't let them know because the people in the party they went to the supermarket and the market for agricultural produce.
I think your point is made though.
But press the flesh in a genuine way.
I learned that from Carter and Alexander when I went to work at Grace Kennedy in 79 and the 80s. And I also learned that in my time at high school as a cadet. And between Kingston College and Camperdown, you really need to touch people, feel them, shake one hand, put your hand over your shoulder.
But also, if you are, because I'm very grateful to the Jamaican people, right? When I applied to the University of New York, it was number 2 in the United States in terms of political science. When I got the prospectus, looking at the book. When I got there, I was bored. Because everything they were teaching me, I learned in Jamaica already. And so I switched to psychology. I became a psychologist instead. So I'm grateful to the kind of education I received in Jamaica. The only problem is not a lot of people receive and is receiving that kind of education.
True.
So there are pockets of excellence in the system, but those pockets of excellence cannot be diffused because of the level of mediocrity in the system and the lack of resources and the lack of political will. So if you look at the Patterson report, they have somebody now who's they employ about 2 people, one for communication and one to ensure that things are happening. But as a former senior civil servant, I stand without fear of contradiction. A unit cannot transform any country, a unit with a few people, or you have a czar. The country cannot be transformed. A policy direction, as we put at education, youth has to be there, health, national security, environment, a range of other ministries, Ministry of Labor. Right? So when you say you're going to implement the policy report and you employ 2 or 3 people, you're not serious.
Professor,
They will do nothing, especially if they do not understand what the civil service work.
Professor Charles, listen, we could continue. We're gonna have to leave it there. That's we run out of time. This is very, very, very enlightening, and we certainly gonna have to pick this up at another time because there's a multiple of issues.
You're getting me in trouble, so let's talk about that.
But listen, it has been a pleasure having you on the Jamaica Mix, Professor Charles.
So you need to bring Herbert. I must ask him. So nobody can get him. I'll get him for you.
I would really love us to do that.
You must speak to the journalist, Kadawami Knife.
I definitely wanna open. I'm leaving the door wide open for that. It's Father's Day tomorrow. On behalf of all of us here at Jamaica Mix and Yard Media, happy Father's Day, Prof.
Thank you, and same to you.
Thank you very much, sir.
And your listeners.
And I just want to use the opportunity to remind our listeners and viewers that come tomorrow we are doing a piece on cocoa tea, big dancehall crooner. From 2 to 4 o'clock on Sunday Scoops, and we're just gonna ask
sweet
you
cocoa tea, man.
Sweet cocoa tea. Yes, there you go. Yeah, I've given the full title. So we inviting you all to join us tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Well, Florida time. It's 1 o'clock in Jamaica. We're gonna do a full tour program. Myself and my co-host, Garth Hendricks, the big man himself, and of course we. Back at the Jamaica Mix on Wednesday from 7 to 9 o'clock. Professor Charles, it's been a pleasure. And
thank you for having me. I'm now going into official hiding.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you don't need to worry about that. But it has been a pleasure.
I'm packing now. I'm going to the U.S. Embassy.
All right, Paddy. Well, thanks again for being with us.
All right, take care.
Yeah. All right, boss.